Everyone. My name is Salah Hamdoun. I am a PhD candidate in Innovation and Global Development at Arizona State University. I am also this year's SDS Hub Fellow at San Francisco State University. The SDS Hub is basically a collective of academics and students coming together to talk about the social values of technology, what it means for the future, and that could be anything from healthcare to education, right? So, and finance. And so we really talk about what are the implications? Basically the same discussion that we're having here today on a continuous basis. So it's a great resource, great couple of people. If you are interested, let me know. I can connect you or otherwise. Let me see. Let me start off. A lot of great things have already been said this morning, so I'm very happy that I can skip over half of my presentation. It's great. But let's take a step back perhaps and I'll share with you how my research is also informing my my teaching. Let me just get my notes here. Yeah. Yeah, so my work is focused on risk in development. I look at ways in which development can approach economic growth, but look at economic growth as with embedded risk, right? So as we are growing, we are also creating all these new opportunities, but they come with they return with some devastating effects sometimes if we don't pay attention. This is an example, right? So on the left, you have a great cloud seeding program that's basically not only in Dubai, but also different places around the world. But in combination with climate change, we are getting other kinds of results, these unintended consequences. So this is the kind of work that I'm looking at, really presenting the evidence that there is a relationship between the risk and the economic growth so that we can actually start paying attention to that. Now, the story of risk is also about the perception of risk and a concentrated power of a dominating approach to risk in society that we should be able to change, but it's quite often very difficult. But it's also important to look at the risk perception, the way that people experience new technologies, because it's basically a moment of interaction between the technology and the individual. Let me just. So I look here at two different things. I look at AI in education, for example, but also other kinds of technologies as a moment of disembedding, the moment that we are looking at our old practices in a new setting, and we really don't know what we have to do, what we can do with our practices. And what you see often is that people trying to figure out what it means for their own future, their own position, their own industry. We're looking at universities now, really starting to think, how can we better implement AI? And I am not seeing, and I want to see you because anyways, that's fine. Yeah, so how we can better implement the idea of AI in our educational system. So first, really the acknowledgement that we are part of a moving society, and this is part of it. So this really uncomfortable feeling is often we often respond by these kind of events, really talking to each other, really trying to understand how to move forward, taking a step back, putting a foot on the brake, and really trying to understand what is this new technology, what is it going to bring us? And there's the disembedding part. Now, there's also the re-embedding part, the way in which we're trying to come back to a kind of a normal situation, right? We're all looking forward to ways of looking at using AI. That's the other part. We're going and we're constantly with innovation, we're going between disembedding and re-embedding. Whether that's innovation or people migrating, for example, it's the same thing, moving to cities. All of it is about the new experience and trying to find a foot on the ground, which is often very difficult. There are three things that we're doing when it comes to this embedding. We are looking at the existing practices, as we mentioned. We're looking at views, learning, and we're also looking at relationships. So how can we use relationships to get back into the place where we want? And In student life, that means meeting up, using Zoom for old practices such as student-led organizing events, where we use social media, but nowadays also use AI to generate many other things. But all of that is part of our process of getting back into a state of where we want to be. Um, these three are difficult, though. They're not equally distributed. People are not having equally chances to look at these three elements and work towards a new situation where it can feel more in line with what society wants. And something that most of you actually already mentioned, how can we get students back to a situation where it can be useful for them, but also to understand our value in society for these students. I am running through the slides very quickly, but it's fine. Um, so what does that mean for equality? My understanding is that we can look at dis-embedding. We can look at how we are moving away from our old practice, our old technologies, and having to start reevaluating our old practices, our ways of teaching, our ways of evaluating work, questions such as plagiarism. But what about the equality? Now, my suggestion is that we should be looking at re-embedding, the process of re-embedding. And I'm so happy that I already heard a lot of people are already thinking about, well, it's here, it's not going anywhere. We have to do something about that, which is true. Acknowledging that this is going to have a profound impact and transform the way we live and work, and just do everything and anything else in our ordinary life. I think that's important. But we have to look at the re-embedding part specifically because of the experience of people. As I mentioned earlier, my work is really focused on trying to understand the risk perception. And for one reason is to understand what kind of world we want to shape. Having people involved in that discussion is important. Knowing what they want, knowing what they want to learn, knowing how they are able to use their new skills, new ways of doing into the in the career paths or in their academic journey. But the re-embedding is something that universities will probably have a little bit of difficulty with because it it demands looking at the experience from the user and perhaps changing the role of the university as becoming even a facilitator instead of a coordinator in a way of organizing future careers, but really listening and understanding what people see in our new technologies. I said like the way, so staying disconnected is really so the formula of dis-embedding is basically also means that whoever is in power, whoever is already or who already occupies position in society that allows to understand and recognize opportunities, those will probably be okay. It is people who have difficulties trying to understand or reach out to the opportunities that are there right now that we have to be concerned about, and be concerned about in a way that allows us to rethink this abstract way of in the educational system, really to accommodate them and match the real world issues with the teaching that we're doing today. And I'm so happy to hear all of these amazing, innovative solutions. The way I use that in my own teaching, I teach a class in the summer. It's a asynchronous class called Innovation in Global Development, is by doing basically two things: trying to situate this technology, trying to situate the people that are using the technology in a larger space, right? So it is. I always look at, for example, future events, future large events, global events, and this year I've chosen the FIFA 2030 World Cup to explain to students this is a pathway that some have chosen. What do you think about that? Can you take different positions on that? Things that we wouldn't really think about as being driven by AI, but are becoming more and more important. So the first part is like understand what is the development of AI that we're talking about, just really to lift people up and trying to see the overall map of that, right? And then I asked them to use ChatGPT, but as others have mentioned as well, focus on, I basically explained to them the ethics, the limitations, on all the other considerations for them to present a report or present an analysis um, that is about AI in development, and really to do both things. Now, with that, I want to train them to become not only consumers but also producers of directions in which we want to take want to take AI, which again comes back to the overall idea of technology is that we are producing consumers, but I also think it's important for students to be um, informed enough to also be part in the decision making and the discussion about AI in the future. As that's why I also wanted to note the FIFA World Cup. Is it something we don't even think about yet? It is going to become more and more important in how, for example, sports use AI and other fields use AI. For students really to be prepared and not think about it as an opportunity that they cannot reach. Um, I think that's all I got now, and thank you so much.